That's correct. It's not our property. It's not within the boundary of the village.
Okay.
Hey, Ben, I have a question regarding the extraterritorial zoning. Under state law, it's set up as a cooperative effort uh, because you have the three board members from each entity. With that, has the town board in Farmington indicated any position one way or the other on extraterritorial zoning?
They haven't. We've let them know that this is a discussion item. I tried calling their board president or their board chair several times, no responses. Um, I, I got the gist if we left that meeting last time, they weren't too pleased with that route though. Again, that's just my feeling of it.
And another question. Uh, uh, the, um, the mine discussion is a kind of approximate cause why this issue has been brought up and we're discussing it. But it also relates to the kind of the broader issue, not just Farmington, but with also the town of Osceola. What type of potential development or inquiries have we had that would lend itself that we should be looking, broadly at extraterritorial zoning as opposed to just one issue?
Good question. We haven't had anything from the town of Osceola in any properties within there, with the exception of small conversation with the school district of whether or not they want to keep all their parcels in the town or keep all their parcels in the village. I think that's just from an ease of planning standpoint. Beyond that, there's been very little growth initiative to the north. And to be honest, we haven't really had that much growth initiative to the south outside of our already our jurisdiction.
I do want to just say that I did get a call today from the supervisor, is that the correct term for the town?
Mhm.
And they got a lot of calls from concerned residents about annexation, and that, thinking that's what tonight was, and I just want to assure people that was not what was part of tonight. Because, yeah, so we got like 15 calls.
Correct. There's no annexation discussion at all about this. You know, to help spur some discussion, I think it's appropriate for me to go on the record and state how I, as the administrator, feel about this. This has been an interesting topic. Extraterritorial zoning has been something that is used in planning world. It's not extremely common, but it is used, and it's used more and more frequently for one reason or another. In this case, I try to look at it from the larger perspective of not just one parcel and one concern, but how do we grow as a community as a whole? And from my perspective here, I don't see extraterritorial zoning as being the appropriate tool at this time to work with. We have a coordinator. We're trying to work hard with our communities to build better cooperation, and we're trying to get some joint road projects done. We're growing in a controlled fashion, and from this perspective, I'm not sure that the base fear of all of this, which is why the residents are here today about a mine, that this is the right tool to slow down a process that, in my opinion, that the regulations are well within the ability. You might be able to nitpick a little bit, but I don't think frankly, I don't think the town of, or the village of Osceola can do any better when it comes to drafting up those proposed regulations. And as such, I have a tough time recommending approval for these resolutions and ordinances, as I'm fearful that this is going to go backwards to the efforts the village is trying to do to create better partnerships with our communities. With that, I'll leave it at that.
I wasn't sure how people wanted to do this, so I'm just going to start with kind of my bullet points, if that's fine. I don't normally write things down, but I felt like this was necessary tonight. So I'm personally not for this path for a couple of reasons here. One, my understanding is this is it's a proactive tool, not a reactive tool, and I feel that this is being used in a very reactive manner. I look back, why wasn't this maybe implemented a decade ago at the time of annexation of the hospital? If the plan was, if you look at, comp plan stuff, why was it never looked at before? And maybe it's this building, other things came up, I don't know. Over the past year, the current board, including myself, we've kind of listened, but no one's really made any efforts to move forward with it until the last couple weeks, even though it's come up numerous times. And to me, we're going in with no plan. It is, like I said, it feels very reactive, almost shoot first, ask the questions later. Let's get to the end first. And I realized how the tool's laid out, but again, to me, when I read all of this and I look at it, it's something that you don't, and I don't know if it's typically done this way, you wouldn't just spring on someone. And I kind of feel that that's what we're doing. Secondly, I look at the page and a half-ish ordinance that was prior to the town of Farmington for this mining. It's gone from that to about 30 pages. So they have expanded, they have tried to address things. I know people have said that they don't feel that they've been listened to. Clearly, some things have been listened to, and we don't always get what we want when it comes to this. So I get that, but they did expand it, and I don't know. I said at the last time, what if it comes back and we like everything in it? What are we going to do? And we didn't really have a decision there. So can we do better? Do we make it 50 pages, 100 pages? Does that change anything? And then by doing this and taking all they've worked on over the past year and just throwing it out, I don't know, what kind of message does that send? Yeah, to our neighbors, all of their residents, all of their taxpayers. And I don't know, it's just, we went into this with a cooperative idea, and I don't know if that happens a lot between communities, but we were trying, and then it kind of just changed gears in one meeting. I had someone mention to me that it's our job to keep our residents safe. I completely agree, but we have all of our residents to think about. Currently, we can't even decide on $50,000 coming up in the next year, and I know we're working on it, for a police officer, which we might not have for a whole shift. That's 12 hours a night or a day where all of our residents are affected. We're also in a tremendous amount of debt. I think everyone knows that. We just raised property taxes on all of our residents. We have a new building that we haven't even finished. It's 2 years in. We need signage, things of that nature. And we have upcoming property tax that we lose. And I'm also worried about next year. No one knows what next year is going to bring financially. I know at the beginning of this pandemic, we had, that survey that came out for our businesses that, I don't remember the number, 25 to 50% could fold. We don't know what's coming up. And we have a ton of projects in our own town that we need to deal with, but we're going to start dealing with a major one that's going on, and I don't even know a major. I shouldn't say major. We're going to start dealing with one when we are not even able to fully deal with everything we got going here right now. And it's a lot, and I get it. It's a city. I don't think people understand everything that goes into it, but it's a lot. It's actually been quite the learning experience. Another, something came up the other day. There's a grant for, a park, to rehab a park possibly. But we don't even have the funds right now to apply for it. And that's a pretty simple one, was my understanding. And kind of my last point is I feel like we're just involving ourselves in a way where there's an issue between two groups. And we're going to jump in the middle of it where we don't necessarily need to. I would personally, hopefully like to see out of all this, besides doing this tool, a boundary agreement, and try to work directly with the residents and the mine that live next to each other to try to find a solution, a compromise. I don't know, this is kind of hippy-dippy, but we're all sharing time and space, and I realize that millennia of people not getting along is probably not going to change in my lifetime, but I hope that maybe there will. So with that being said, that's where I'm sitting right now.
I'll go next. So when we sat down, it's been over a year now, we've been talking about this, and we've met a number of times with Farmington. We've seen their ordinances and stuff. Looking through their ordinance, I piggyback on what Jeremy says. I think Farmington has done a good job at trying to find compromises between the mine owners and the residents, not only village residents, but their residents too. and they're looking at a bigger picture for their mine ordinance. It's a township ordinance. It isn't just the north mine that they're dealing with. But I think they've done a good job of trying to come to a compromise between the groups. As far as the ETZ goes, extraterritorial zoning, I want to apologize if the rumor mill started, because I've been one that has been vocal about, if we're going to look at this as a tool, we shouldn't be looking at it as a tool for a project that some citizens don't want. We need to look at this as a tool for future growth of the village and the townships. I think that, in my opinion, is what this is designed for, is how to manage growth. It's not for stopping projects. And I think that's where we're at right now. I've had a number of calls from both Farmington and Osceola Township residents, not very happy that we're talking about this. They don't want to be part of the village of Osceola. And while I don't represent them, I also respect their wishes too. And looking at the bigger picture, I think we need to have a lot more dialogue with our townships before we jump into something like this. My thoughts.
I'll go next too. And I certainly understand, the concerns. I think you expressed them well, Jeremy and Bob. And you're right, it is a proactive tool to use. I don't think it's wrong for us to have the discussion about the tool that we have, the issue that brought it to the forefront. But we need a lot of dialogue with our towns as we continue to grow over time, and we have a lot of common issues to face. So I mean, I can understand why they would maybe think negatively of the village for talking about it. But it is a tool that if we all work together and we see a need for it, we could do it. But my concern is that we want to be collaborative with them, and they're on board with the tool that we'd want to use. Because my concern is if we would want to do it without their buy-in at some level, then it becomes just adversarial, and we could spend a lot of time and effort, and then it would come to nothing, as Ben pointed out with that. So I'm in favor of working with the towns, and I think the town has done a lot with the mine in their ordinance. I've sent my suggestions to them about some things that I think they could add, but I don't know that we could want to complicate it without a collaborative effort on both of our parts or both towns in doing that. It could just it probably not end well with that. So.
Are you gonna go, Bruce?
Yeah, I'll go. Couple of things that stand out to me in this discussion is that we've had several meetings with the town of Farmington. We seem to be working well with them. They seem to be willing to make adjustments to this ordinance. But if we do this ETZ thing, I think we're sticking ourselves in the middle of something that we may not be equipped or financially able to really follow through on. I mean, it's not going to, the way I read it, it's not going to stop anybody doing what they're doing right now. And there's 3 members from each town, each village, that have to agree on what we're going to do. So it's not like anybody can dictate terms to anybody else. It has to be a joint effort, which is kind of what we were already doing. And if we start, it really, to me, resets the bar to 0, and we have to start all over again, which I know Farmington has spent a lot of money and time and effort on coming up with their new ordinance. And I don't know, as Jeremy said, that we'd do any better, but I know we'd spend at least as much time. And I don't know that we don't have other things we need to worry about for the village of Osceola rather than the joint project between the 2 towns. And I also was elected to represent the town residents, the village residents, all of them, not 10 or 50 or 100, but all 2,500. And this I see as being very focused on a very small group. And I don't think that's really where we need to spend our time, as well as we need to spend it with running the town for the majority of the residents. There's nobody that lives anywhere but Ridge Road that's going to get a benefit out of this that I can see in pure and simple terms. And you can argue about groundwater and pollution and everything else, but again, as Ben said, let's talk facts. I haven't seen a lot of facts. I've heard a lot of opinions. So for my 2 cents worth, I don't know that we need to do this.
Oh, okay, I think I'm up. I believe I am, yeah.
You can.
All right. All right, you can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
Loud and clear.
All right, thanks. There's a couple of issues that I have here. And one of the issues is, yeah, this seems like a knee-jerk situation, but it really isn't. It's been going on for quite some time. It just got a little bit busier with the mining and the depth of the mine and what they were doing. And once the word frack came out, that was the biggest thing. Once that word frack, and then everything broke loose, and then the mine becomes a concern. Well, it's a gravel pit yet. I've had correspondence with a lot of people, talked to a lot of people about this. We've been through a lot, just all together as a board, as citizens, as to what's going on. My take is that fracking has stopped right now, frack sanding or sand mining. Let's get the facts straight. Right now, because of the economy. When that's going to start again, I don't know. But for the simple fact, looking at the ordinances in the township, they've got most of their ducks in a row. It's looking good. I don't know what other changes were made since their last meeting on, I believe, Monday or Tuesday. They had a public hearing. And I haven't heard much about that. And if they were going to make any changes to that ordinance, they have put in a lot of time and a lot of money, and it's going to cost us quite a bit of time and quite a bit of money to have extraterritorial zoning. I'm for extraterritorial zoning. I'm sure most of you are aware of it, for the simple fact is things happen. Duplication and a double layer of safety probably won't hurt. There is some pretty lax inspections going on. Yes, they're within state regulation, state mandates. However, in this area, there's always some questions as to, is all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed? My first obligation is to all the citizens of the village of Osceola. Bruce had mentioned a few people, a minority of people, but it's not just those people on Ridge Road I'm looking at. I'm looking at the overall picture of the project itself, the expansion of the gravel pit, the expansion of noise, the expansion of potential possible environmental risks of moving soils around and those things. We've all been that. We've looked at it, we've researched it. The other part about it is the tourism we have to also consider. I'm growing up in this area. I was born here in Osceola, and we have something really special here. We have a really dynamic amount of nature's most pristine land. The St. Croix River Valley we're blessed to have it. But we're located in a fairly, what should I say? It's a pretty sacred area. There's so many things that I could go on about as if one thing we could mess up, and that would be our environment. I'm not this person who runs around and talks about the environment and saving everything. I don't know enough about that, but I know enough about our area that I'm concerned about our environment. And I'm concerned about the aspects of, I don't want to see a business being drove out of business, but I also want to see other businesses thrive and to flourish because of what we have to offer. We have great hiking trails. We have beautiful overlooks. Our, traffic situation needs to be improved. Yes. Our roads, our infrastructure, yes, we need improvement. We're going to have it. And we depend on gravel for that. So these decisions for me to look at this are really hard because I've talked with the gravel pit owners and I can see where they're coming from. I know they want to expand. But we also in the future have to expand ourselves. What direction are we going to go? Possibly that way. What surrounds a hospital? There's more apartments, more, so we have to look at that. The smart growth of Osceola, I don't know how fast this is going to happen, but we also got to consider in our future as to how big this crater is going to be in a potential growth area, what Osceola wants to do. I know there's restrictions as far as original paperwork that was done and agreements were done because it's an approach and takeoff area for the airport. So we're not really worried about high buildings at that point, and we're not really worried about anything else. I don't think the piles of dirt are going to get over 40 feet above off the ground level, so that isn't going to affect it. But it's the blasting, which is only going to be so much longer, so we won't have to worry about that. But that's going to move over. That's going to move over more towards areas that maybe we don't want that to go on. Maybe the township isn't quite ready either, but I don't know. But what I'm saying is that I think we have to look out for all of our residents. And my take is that I realize that extraterritorial zoning, I don't want to be pushy, but we also have an obligation as to think about where the location is, what the actual impact of this location of the gravel pit is, and what we need to do about the future. I'm not saying we have to extraterritorial zone a mile and a half out. It could be within a certain distance. And we're not talking about annexing in, but we're also talking about managing what is the potential effects into the St. Croix River, into the valley. So my take is to sum it up, is that I'm for extraterritorial zoning in this particular situation in a limited area. We have several different plans that we have looked at. I've looked at them all, and a couple of them fall within that would. I know we'd be duplicating it. Where we're going to find the money for this, I don't know. And but the priority, we have to think about our residents. Are they going to be taken care of if something big happens? Are we ready to help take care of that? Because litigation as it stands today, it takes years to figure things out after the fact they happen. So if the well caves in or something happens, who knows what's going to happen? Are we able and ready, if we don't do the extraterritorial zoning, or if we do, are we ready to help these people or any situation possible? So, and I realize that we're not going to be getting the tax revenue off this area. It has no real benefit to us except for the locality of the gravel pit for transportation costs if we're doing any construction projects. It'll probably save the village quite a bit of money in other areas. But other than that, my stance is I'm for extraterritorial zoning in a very limited area, not to stop the mine, but to make sure that if there is expansion, we are getting what we need And and I hear a bunch of noise. We are getting what we need to ensure that our citizens in the village are being taken care of. That's all I've got.
Okay.
So I guess that leaves me.
Pause 1 second. Can you open that door back up, please? Just because it's open. Thank you. Sorry, Deb.
Can we ask them to,
Yeah,
it is
just-
very distractive to have them not
I'll take
wheel
care
the.
of
Eh, I feel much the same that Van does on this. I don't know that ETZ is the friendly way to do this, but I think that we need to think about a way to do this. Jeremy, you said proactive versus reactive and a year and everything. One of the reasons that we haven't had a more deep discussion on this is that it wasn't until a few months ago that the land was purchased, which then meant that there was the potential that, there's talk about an expansion, but until the land was purchased, it wasn't real. So I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't done anything. We've had a lot of other things that have been more on fire, more that we've had to deal with. As far as the ordinance and all the pieces that Farmington has put together, we talk about throwing it away. It's not like we're gonna burn it and never see those words. That would be a basis for any permit. I mean, we'd be foolish to not steal their words if we were to do this. Collaborative effort. I don't get a sense of collaboration between us. It's very early on, and so in us meeting and talking with them, we've had 2 meetings with them, and I feel like we gave ideas and they were not accepted. I think that we have to work a little bit better with them. Part of my question on this is if the current square footage of the mine is what it is right now, and you guys have said you have 3 to 5 more years left of mining the current hole that's open, why are we rushing? Why is Farmington rushing to get an ordinance in place? Is it because they feel a need on it? I mean, I get it, you want to make sure that you plan ahead. Whenever you do anything, you want to plan ahead. But I don't see why Farmington needs to rush an ordinance in place in the next 3 months, 4 months, 1 month, or however long. But for me, more this comes to a little bit more of what Van was saying. Ben, you mentioned impact of village growth pattern. And I mean, everybody here has mentioned about growth pattern and everything. I've been on the board for 6.5 years. And in those 6.5 years, do you know how many businesses have gone in up there? We're talking about, we think we don't know if we're going to expand everything. We may not, but others have. The fire hall, J&S has expanded. Quick Trip, a memory care unit, the park in front of the Osceola Medical Center, Riverwood, have all moved up directly in that area in the south. That's 6 businesses in 6 years. So although we may not be looking at us expanding as a village that way, putting housing, this, whatever stuff, we are expanding that way. It just may not be that all of it is a business that resides in the Osceola Village. It's neighboring. All those businesses that are going in have a direct impact on us with people here, more people moving possibly into the village, everything. What is one of our number 1 issues that we have here? Housing. As more businesses come in there or whatever other direction, even if they aren't directly in the village of Osceola proper and tax paying into us, that rider thing has a huge impact on us. Like I said, the housing, the people moving in, our tax base increases, more houses built in our area and everything. We need to be more aware of that and put that thought process into it too. That we have to think that there is growth happening. It's just not a big development like a million years ago when Gateway went in or something like that. There is growth here. We need to be aware of it. Now, ETZ to me is difficult because I feel like we are the big brother going in and bullying the little sibling. That's not fun. That doesn't bring cooperation, collaboration, anything. It doesn't make for happy people in the area, everything. But I also see that right now, it appears to be the only way that we have to have some ability to have some say in what's happening, not even on our border. It's in, I mean, three sides of it, we surround it. That, those pieces out there, that there's use for that land in so many ways, and maybe it is to expand the mine and the gravel pit. Maybe there is reclamation pieces in there that would be great and awesome and everything. I've seen the, lack of a better way of saying it, the lake pond or whatever in there. There's really quite the cool place, and there's, I mean, you can picture these growth, everything and stuff. But it's hard to build on, you know, housing on a reclaimed land. I look at this and all I see is right now, this is a way for us to, I don't know if it's the right way to say it, is to slow the process so that we can address it more and see how it fits with us. If we just say, great, Farmington, I mean, they have, it's the, what, 6th, so we've got 20-some days. Their ordinance, their moratorium goes up, and the next day they put the ordinance in place, and they grant the permits and everything, and then we have nothing that we can do to say, you know, what are we going to do as a village and everything. I've been here for a long time. I'm not going to be critical of anybody else, but I know I'm going to die here because I own a cemetery plot in Farmington. So I have been here, I am here, and I will be. And I want to think further out to if my kid decides to live here, my kids' kids. I have lots of relatives that live around that have kids, lots of friends, everything. I want to make sure our next generations, we're setting them up to have success in our town and not just simply saying, yeah, go for it, Farmington. We don't want to bully you, so let's just go for it.
Thanks, Deb.
Jeremy? I was gonna, yeah, Deb, I don't disagree that, you know, planning wise, you know, our village boundaries go out that way to the hospital and, you know, down Ridge Road, and there's been growth in that area. You know, the growth that's happened is all within the village limits over the years, so we have territory that we haven't used up yet. And the concern that I would have is what position do we put ourselves in if we're looking to extend extraterritorial zoning? We don't know that we have the cooperation of the town in doing so. We still have a fair amount of land within the village to use up, and it could be perceived that we're doing it just to stop the mine. Doesn't seem like a good recipe to defend ourselves later of the reasons we extended to extraterritorial zoning. If we have to think about it more broadly as where, you know, where is it all occurring or potentially occurring for development? And, you know, do we need to step in now with this without really any agreement from the town that they'll cooperate?
Oh, I fully agree, and that's what I mean, the whole bully aspect of it, of us going in there, whatever. But right now, I'm not hearing any other options from anyone to say, here's a way we're looking at growth. We do have land up there, but if I came to you, Joel, and I said, I'm a developer and I have some apartments I want to put in, are you going to, in good faith, as us as a village, just say, we got this great piece of land right next to some booms and bangs? You know, that's more what I'm saying. I'm not saying go take someone else's land. I don't think that. I know what we have up there, and I just think that the land that we have up there becomes less beneficial to us if we don't talk, at least, you know, work and make sure that, you know, I'm not saying let's stop the mine, the gravel pit, anything. I'm saying we need to think beyond just what, to me, yes, it's a huge financial impact, but it's also a small financial impact in the grand scheme of everything. Just like this building is a huge financial impact and a small financial impact. We've been in town for 150 plus years, and there have been many, many times that finances have been tough. So, you know, I just am looking for a way and trying to figure out why there is such a rush to get the ordinance in place as quickly as possible and a permit in place. If there's no, if in the permit it says the mine is allowed a certain square footage open at the time, 40 acres, whatever it is, and until this 40 acres is done, you can't do another 40 acres, and there's time still that there's still mining to be done in the open hole that's there. Why is Farmington in a rush?
Do you feel that they're in a rush?
I do.
I asked that because how many moratoriums have they had? 3? They're on their 3rd now?
They're only on this one because of the pandemic.
Still, I don't know. I guess they've been working on it, what, a year or close to? 9 months? 6 months-ish?
Just if everybody could help speak into the mic.
Oh,
We've had
sorry.
a statement on the web that they can't quite hear us unless we do.
I guess I don't feel that they're rushing, but I could be missing something. That's why I'm asking. I did contact some of the businesses up there just to try to get some opinions. Couple of them, no opinion. Couple didn't mind. I assume, I didn't talk to anyone at Quick Trip, but obviously they know what they're moving in next to, as I think they're getting most of their product to build it from them. Side note, just as a painter, when I go into houses, I look at trim, I just find myself feeling it. Has anyone else noticed how rock and aggregate is just everywhere? Or just you, I don't know.
Your
So-
point?
My point is that I find it's just, it seems to keep getting pushed further and further out because we don't like to see it. And I feel that's what this is, in a way. It's loud, it's ugly. Go somewhere else. Do we have potential growth down there? Maybe. I guess I don't know what the future holds for us. I don't know. It's nothing that I've seen this business is doing anything wrong, yet this, again, this feels like it's so specific to this one thing, which it is. But as another business looking at this, would I question like, oh, what are they doing? What if I want to grow up here in the industrial park? Different, could be. Could be more busy, louder, I don't know.
I know Jeremy, if I can add something, I know for this whole process, what I'm hoping will come out of it is, I think the village needs a better long-range plan on growth. And I think if nothing else comes out of this, either way, that this opens dialogue between not only Farmington, but Osceola Township, because I think we're fooling ourselves if we don't look around the whole village. And maybe this opens up some boundary agreements between us and Farmington, and we can work on the mining issue then. If we feel it's a problem, if we can work together. You know, that's what I would hope to come out of this, is that we have some more dialogue between the townships.
A big problem, I think, is that we're all nice people up here. I really, honestly, truly believe that, and we don't want to be the bad guy on any level. And I feel like this is one of our more divisive, more, I don't know, interesting topics that's come up. So, I guess with that being said, does anyone else have any other comments?
A question, Ben, in the, I guess, the research here, I know that you did on extraterritorial zoning, was there any issues or pitfalls for communities if it was perceived that they extended just based on a single issue or a single item?
There's some case study out there. There was one, I forget, it's DeForest versus municipality, or DeForest versus another. And I did provide that in the past packet to you. It was considered very specific to one, and parcel was the reason why they enacted it. I think litigation is almost guaranteed, but not necessarily losing because of it. So there is some precedent to exercising it over one specific area.
But in litigation, even winning, there's only really one winner. It's the attorneys, I mean. That's,
Yeah, it would be nice.
Um,
What-
Ben,
sorry.
Ben, or who's, am I okay to talk? This is Van.
Go ahead, Van.
go Van.
Okay, the litigation that you're talking about, Ben, what are we talking about? Is there something going on that I didn't know about, or what's that?
Our attorney has stated that, you know, and I forward you some of those emails also, that she recommended that if the village takes this route, you should go in 100%. That doesn't necessarily mean 100% yes vote, but once the decision's made, you have to go in 100%, because the second you start to waffle, you start to do things, then you open it up for debates, questions, inconsistencies, and things like that. Given how divisive this one is, it's more so of my concern that we would begin to see, you know, potential lawsuits and others, as there's parties on all sides that are passionate about this. So it just, planning's sake to say, you know, those are things. Again, I don't want to have that be the overarching concern here. That's just potentially a part of reality with a decision such as this.
And if we choose not to enact this, there's still chance for litigation from citizens of some sort. So there could be litigation either way, is what you're saying.
I think there's always fear of it, though a decision on no is likely less, just from the standpoint that we've gone through the proper steps of due diligence, so. But yeah, to answer your question, Van and Deb, there is always a concern, and it's
Yeah.
always something that I, as an administrator, have to try to account for.
Yeah, you know, and I know there's been so much research done into this, and what the attorney is saying is correct. I just thought maybe there was something else that maybe you'd heard between when we got the letter and right now. Yeah, even if we're very limited on what area we decide on, if we decide anything, there still could be litigation at that, because they suspect maybe, you know, we're just focusing on the mine, you know, and basically being a bully, which isn't the case. It's not. It hasn't. You know, if we form this, and then both the township and then the village would be together with this, it's not being a bully. And if things can't be decided between the two, you know, then we have to go a different direction. But in my opinion, we have to do something. But yeah, I don't know what the clear answer is. We have we have options here. And I think we just have to talk about it, air it out a little bit, and see where it leads. That's the best we can do right now.
So I guess hypothetically, if it was to pass, what's the end look like? Where's it go?
Well, that was my concern earlier, is where does it go if you don't have the cooperation and the buy-in with the town up front? It could just be this 3-3 vote in that board that you'd set up, and it would just fall apart. We could take It could take months, it could take a year, it could take two, and eventually, if nobody comes around, it falls apart. So
And then
What-
what happens?
we're back to the same square one in my mind. I don't know.
I got a question. I got a question also. Something that
What was in there? It's like a mouse got caught in there with drop cloths or something.
a what?
A
A
mouse?
mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to take care of that mouse. Hey, this is this is this is Van. Something else that come up is any other board members besides myself talked to a lot of people within uh, how many citizens do we think that are really interested in this in the core part of town, downtown? Everybody's who is hooked up on municipal water and sewer, those types of things. It really doesn't affect them in a way unless it hits one of our big wells. This is something. We've been getting enough input from the general population as they're concerned as to the gravel pit and how active it is.
Beyond just asking some random folks here and there, I mean, that's all I've done.
Right. Ben, have you had, and has anybody else had anything in the office, any of the staff themselves had any input from the citizens directly in the downtown area?
We've had some comments from individuals. To be completely honest with everybody, it's been all over the place. We've had residents say, yes, they are concerned. We've had residents say, no, they're not concerned. We've had it to the south of the village on the closest roads of impact. So 35 and Ridge Road say they care. And on 35 and Ridge Road, they say they don't care. We've had businesses say, yes, it could be a problem from a trucking standpoint. And we've had businesses that say, we don't have a problem with it at all. And to be honest, we have one of the largest businesses in the area that say, we're not going to provide a comment one way or another. So we have had everything in every way, Van.
Yeah.
I
Well,
will.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. I have nothing else.
Yeah, you're right. It is up in the air, and it does not affect a lot of people in ways that we would expect, but it does affect people in ways that we don't recognize. For the people who are on city water and sewer, they don't have to worry about it because if the pipe breaks, somebody fixes it. It's they pay for that year round. Well, when you're on your own well and your own system, it's different. And we talked about that there's insurances that, the repairs would be made possibly through liability carrier from the mine, or there would be an alternative water source for the people who had a well issue. So that would scare me. And I think people have to realize that there are people in this village who are still on their own well. I being one of them, and my own septic, because it's where I'm located in the village, it's almost impossible to run municipal utilities too. And the same way out at Ridge Road, there's other places in town that have the same issues. But we also have a major issue is our well water. I know our wells are pretty deep, and they're not going to those levels with if they do start going deeper into the surface. They're limited, but they are wandering around the water tables. We know that it's a fact. Hydrologists have talked about it. So that's just my concern about it, and the environmental issue, and noise, kayakers, boaters, campers, whoever's in the area and our growth. So that's just my take on it. And I'll let you go from there.
Hey, Van, if I can be kind of candid about this, besides the anti-mine group, up on Ridge Road with the correspondence they've shared with the village, actually in the last 2 weeks, I probably had more phone calls from township residents concerned
Right.
about where this is all going than I have from the rest of the village residents about the mining issue. And that's just being really honest. I've had more phone calls in the last 2 weeks from our residents of the townships concerned about us annexing them in than the rest of the village concerned about the mine.
So
What you explained is
in
this
the
wasn't
majority,
annexed,
Bob,
right?
are they telling us
Yes, I
that
did that.
we're sticking our nose into township business that
Yeah.
the township
yeah.
can handle? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, they're afraid that in the future they would be annexed into the village in the
Oh.
long term.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
explained that isn't the, we're looking at working with the townships. So,
Yeah.
So without,
Yeah.
without doing extraterritorial zoning, where do you guys see us having any collaboration with Farmington after, I mean, obviously I wasn't at the last meeting, but from what I heard from talking to a couple of you and from what I saw in the paper and everything and stuff, it seems like it really was just another sit and here's the thing, and there was no interacting, collaborating, and anything stuff. Where do you guys see the collaboration going, and what do you see down the road for us? And I'm in true honesty, I'm trying to find a way that this works, that we make sure that we're doing things right. We talk about the extraterritorial zoning and say that we could just spend 2 years of doing nothing, or we could spend 2 years doing a whole lot of things. It could go either way. We can't predict it. If we could predict the future, none of us would be sitting here right now because we'd have all gone to Vegas and made a bunch of money. So I guess, where do you see the collaboration?
So after the last meeting, they said they're gonna take what we said, they're gonna take what happened at the public hearing, go to their attorney, revamp whatever. I don't know what that's gonna be yet. So I think that's probably why there wasn't a ton of there was discussion on each point somewhat. It just, I think as the paper said, it was amicable. Is that what the?
Well, yeah, I
what
mean,
was?
but so is this, and we disagree, and
No,
I
I
mean,
know,
yeah,
I'm
I
just,
mean, yeah.
there was discussion, there just wasn't really a lot of like, oh, we disagree with that, or, so we kind of made our points, and they're gonna take that to their attorney after the public hearing they had. What comes out of that, I don't know. My hope is, at one point, and I think it was in our discussion, is having annual meetings. So, I don't know. Another thing, someone made this point to me that is very environmentally concerned, I guess. They almost liked the idea of the mine being there because it's going to be more closely watched than if it's pushed out to somewhere where no one can watch anything. Where it actually would be monitored and people might catch things happening that shouldn't be. So that's kind of interesting. And collaborating with the mine, the owners of the mine and our residents, and trying to be maybe, what's the word I'm looking for, mediator of some kind, to try to come up with a solution. That, I guess, is what I see, hopefully. And again, no one can predict the future, and maybe that's all roses. But I guess as far as the ETZ thing and the end, what I'm saying, I don't know what that is, that goal, other than the conversations of, we're not happy with any of this. So that goes to me, well, what am I gonna do better? That's going to be okay. I mean, I've had the comment, so this is a start for negotiations? No, I don't want, I want everything. I don't know how anything comes out of that. So when I look at it, I feel like the end goal of this is nothing.
The end goal of,
ETZ.
I see it as negotiation. I see without it, there is no negotiation.
Not from
and-
our end, sorry.
Right,
Should
but
clarify
no,
that.
from our end, I guess, I don't think that the extraterritorial zoning is like the greatest thing on earth. I don't like it. I just see it right now as an option that allows us to have some ability to have a conversation and collaboration. I feel without us doing something, and if there is some other, I mean, I'm not an administrator. I'm just a lowly paper pusher for the state of Minnesota. So, maybe there's something else that allows us the ability to have some, ability to participate in what's going on up there, to look at it in the interest of us as a village. I feel that if we don't do anything, we will get, we will have no ability to negotiate anything. An annual meeting is great. I think that's something that, all around everything, it's good. I mean, it's like having a, block party with your neighbors. It makes for better living and everything. But I don't see us having, like I said, is there some other way that allows us the ability to have a collaborative effort with Farmington? And I'm seriously asking. I don't know.
Boundary agreement? I mean, I don't know everything that goes into it. I know that was a suggestion shot to me in a kind of an example. And then, similar to this, maybe we get a few people from both sides and we work on something, crafting something very specific to that little area. Maybe. And again, no one's gonna be able to predict the future on that either, so.
Ben, I got a question. So say we don't enact it tonight, the ETZ, and then we start working with Farmington, and then we decide that in a year, yes, we need to do something. We don't agree with what the mine's doing with their expansion. At that point, anything that they haven't opened up already and worked on, could we have a say in whether that would be opened up, or is that all covered under their one permit right now? You know what I'm trying to say? Can we,
So to clarify there, if the village chooses not to take that route right now, but they do choose to take that route in the future because of a use that's not consistent with what we want, in this case, your example being the mine, if my answer to that would be, if the conditional use permit, and again, I was stressing, I'm interpreting your question. If the conditional use permit has been issued for the extent that they're allowed to go to,
Yep.
that conditional use permit is active. If the conditional use ceases to be, then that could be revoked and then that conditional use permit's denied. But if they get their approvals and everything during this process, then it's an operating
Right.
infrastructure, it's operating mine. Again, I mean, if the conditional use permit is found to be invalid, changed, substantially changed, the proposed regulations.
How likely is that?
Well, the proposed regulations have every, regular intervals of reviewing the permits, so
Yep.
they could change. Tough one to answer
Yeah.
also. Deb, I
didn't
mean,
want to confuse the issue.
No,
Well,
it's
and if
okay.
this is enacted, the current mine operation, 80 acres, is the same no matter what, correct?
Correct.
Existing one that's
Yeah,
there?
the current 80 acres. Zero involvement from us, we have no say over anything, runs the same, everything's the same.
Yes, as I understand it, the zoning of the town, which is in your packet here, is agricultural in the area, and it's a conditional use within their agricultural district. So, yeah, an active quarry that's following the rules and having the proper regulations is an active quarry, even if extraterritorial zoning is enacted. The only time
And the
it
life
wouldn't.
of the active quarry is?
This active quarry?
Yeah.
I've heard 3 to 5 years is realistic. It
Yep.
sounds, I mean, I can't speak for how long they're gonna go. They could slow production down, or they could ramp it up.
Right, and so the current permit takes care of what is there right now. ETZ does not allow us to have any say on that. So for 3 to 5 years, there's an active gravel pit there in that footprint that's open right now. But there's nothing else opening up in that. But if we don't enact ETZ, I'm trying to restate all this so that I understand. If we did ETZ, what's there right now continues to run in the way that it does, and it continues on until they're done mining it and they do the reclamation and everything. But the mine can't expand. If we don't enact ETZ, Farmington can go ahead with their permit or their ordinance, permit them to have the mine opened for however many years, the extra 200 acres or whatever, and unless there's some regulation that changes and makes the permit null and void, we can't retroactively go back and say, I'm sorry, we want to enact ETZ right now, and so you have to stop. Is that correct?
If the village enacts extraterritorial zoning and decides that there is a place or is not a place for mining within there, because again, extraterritorial zoning is a tool that we still have to decide what we want in that area to be. In the event that any future permit were to be requested in an area that is not compliant with what we would see that area being, as the agreed upon extraterritorial zoning would have, they wouldn't be allowed to. If the existing operation stays compliant, stays existing and everything, it would be grandfathered in as an already existing conditional use within there. If they chose to expand and they stopped their conditional use permit were to expire because of inactivity or whatever is within our state regulations, then the overarching zoning would still be playing into it, at which point the mine would become under question for use. Is
But what
that
I'm-
answering your question?
No, because I think, I'm going back to what Bob was saying, I think. And correct me if I'm putting words into what you were saying. If we do nothing tonight, Farmington passes their ordinance, North 40 submits their permits underneath that, Farmington grants them the permit, and that permit is what's based on the ordinance that they've written, and their permits have to do with the expansion and the ability to open another 40 acres, open another 40 acres, open another 40 acres, as, you know, open and then each time one is open, it's closed. I think we all know that this is never gonna be a 200-acre hole up there. It's always gonna be like a 40-acre gravel pit mine or whatever. But if we do nothing and the permit goes through and the mine up there now has that ability to expand and open and open and open and open and close everything, we a year from now cannot come back and say, oh, wait, we'd like to do ETZ. If we do, then it would only be for some new permit that came or whatever. I don't know if I'm making sense. So if we do nothing tonight and the ordinance and the permitting goes through, we can't go back and say, we'd like a second shot at looking at this, unless some sort of state or federal or something regulation came and made that conditional use permit null. Is that making sense?
Yes, I think I understand. It's my understanding of reading the regulations and talking with our attorney that if they were issued their permits, the conditional use permit would be active and we would be following that guideline. Now, because under your example, if they enacted their ordinance and their permitting factor, and it would then fall to the village as being the authority to decide whether or not they would get another permit within that regulation. So as they said, annual checkups, 5-year renewals, all of those things as proposed would fall to the village to decide those as whether or not they're following their regulations. So yes, that conditional use permit would be live and functioning as they would be within that rule. It would the onus would then fall on the village to decide whether or not substantial evidence is available to deny that use, that conditional use permit in the future.
What I really would hope to come out of this, and I've said this before, is that we can work with Farmington. It seems like the mine owners have been willing to work with Farmington and try to come up with compromises. And instead of going out there and saying, this is what we want, this is what we're gonna do, that we work together and try and find a solution to this. Would be my hope, is that we could work with Farmington and come up with a solution, come up with compromises, to make all parties happy, which we're not gonna do. I mean, but that would be the pie in the sky.
A question, is there anything that would prevent the village from entering into an agreement with the mine owners for specific issues that affect residents that are in the village, such as, monitoring the wells or, replacing wells that might be contaminated in the future without involving ETZ?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about it from that perspective. It's not within our jurisdiction, so I'm not sure what availability we would have to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking less of some statute or ordinance that would require it, maybe just asking them if there's certain things that are specific to us as a village and our residents that maybe don't quite fit within what they're trying to draft for an ordinance, and, because of what we've talked about with the ETZ, maybe that's a way to solve the issue, is just to sit down and say, are there some things that we could do as a mutual agreement? We'd have to enforce it as a civil issue, if it need be at that, but maybe that could solve it.
Well, Joel, this is Van. You're right. They have always said and still continue to say that they want to be really good neighbors. So maybe that is kind of an option we can look at too.
Do we feel we have kind of got through all of our discussion?
Said more than I wanted to say.
Not bad, not bad. Bruce, Van, anything else to add?
No, I think I've said everything I wanted to say.
No, I've got nothing more. Really, we've covered a lot. It's just, it's on the script here as far as what's next. I guess that's where we're at, right?
Yeah, well, I suppose we'd be moving on to the resolution portion. Discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2016, resolution formally initiating the development of an extraterritorial zoning ordinance.
The resolution is in front of you. I provided an updated copy with the one adjustment, as everybody, and Van and Bruce, I emailed it to you also.
Got it.
Yes,
Yep.
got it.
So for the record, I will state that the one adjustment adjusted how we interpret Section 2, lands subject to jurisdiction. The original statement, bring it in front of you here, said all contiguous parcels located wholly within the town of Farmington, Village of Osceola limits, and further dictated by the Village of Osceola Board at the properly noticed meeting, which was today. It was recommended by our attorney just to clarify that a little bit, saying all contiguous parcels located wholly within the town of Farmington and within 1.5 miles of the borders of the Village of Osceola or certain parts thereof to be decided by the Village of Osceola Village Board at this meeting today. It was just a clarification, as I didn't clearly state that within the ordinance or the resolution. So it's the same language within the two. One thing I would encourage, as in your packet, I provided alternatives to what could be done if you felt that maybe you didn't want to go the full distance. As you're allowed to go up to 1.5 miles, doesn't necessarily mean you want to, and it certainly sounds like that it wasn't something that was desired. So if you were to make a motion today favoring it, I would encourage you to clearly state your motion with the intent of describing what you feel. You could say up to a full 1.5 miles. You could say including all areas within boundary A, B, and C, just C, just B. Again, I encourage you to make it very, very clear as we want to make this as concise as possible. And then, of course, the same would fall for the ordinance. If the resolution doesn't pass, there's no need to do the ordinance as one is tied to the other.
So the options are motion for, do you do motions against? Or no? No? Okay. Or there's just no motion made? So with all the discussion, we are at the resolution. And I'll entertain if anyone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to, for the resolution formally initiating the development of an extraterritorial zoning ordinance. Oh, I don't have mine. Sorry. I'd like to make a motion to enact the resolution formally initiating the development of an extraterritorial zoning ordinance specific only to, I mean, not, specific only to a small portion to the south of our town. I don't even know how to be specific. I don't want the entire mile and a half.
Well, what you could say is, with the examples I gave, you could say within boundary A. So for everybody that's out in the audience, boundary A was just a mine, boundary B was a little further, and C was a little bit further out from there. So if you felt like making a motion with those, that would qualify.
One thing for everyone looking at it. So the dark blue is A, B includes A and is the medium blue, and then C's everything,
yeah.
including the light blue, correct? So okay.
So Deb, you do have you're stating your motion.
To boundary A, or the ETZ boundary A.
You haven't got your mic on, Van.
I'll second that. This is Van.
Motion by Deb, seconded by Van to approve resolution 2016.
Question before we vote? I was just gonna see, is there any thought of asking the mine owners about a separate agreement between us and them before taking action on this?
Right now, the motion is
No, I
made.
understand.
We would have to. Motion has been made and second. That's really all that can be discussed
Yeah.
at this point.
Not right now. So resolution 2016, all the wording in it for the ETZ boundary A on our map in our packet, correct?
Yes.
Any questions or comments? We will do a roll call vote. Bob,
No.
Joel,
No.
Deb,
Yes.
Bruce,
No.
Van,
Yes.
and I am also no. The motion does not pass. 2-4. With that, the ordinance just dies, right? Okay. With that, we will move to next steps. I suppose with next steps, if anyone has a comment, I guess.
Could we have our staff inquire with the mine owners if a separate agreement would work with our attorney to address specific issues that we feel we might have with that?
Sure. Write in some notes, Joel, as you're
Mhm,
reading that.
no, that's fine. Do you want it as a motion, or is it by consensus enough?
I think we
I
can
think
just direct
consensus.
staff.
Consensus?
Direction
do
is
that.
fine.
And part of that, if I can add on to Joel's, is maybe looking at, one of the things, the questions would be more permanent noise control, maybe some wall around the village sides or something.
Right, I think I mentioned the well monitoring or dealing with that previously.
I think we can work with them and then also with our residents too, just to get some of those core issues and move on from there. Anything else?
Just one comment, Jeremy. If we decide to come back and revisit the CTZ issue, I would feel much more comfortable if we had a game plan, what the objectives were in passing it and what we were specifically trying to accomplish. Because I didn't really get a sense that we had that clearly defined.
I would agree with that. I would also say that it is something that with the growth, maybe we do look at in the future, but try to maybe start with a little communication between communities. Anything else?
No.
No.
All right, and with that, we can adjourn at 7:59. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. See you
Thank
later.
you.
Goodbye.
See you, Van.
Goodbye, Bruce.
What time was it? 7:59?
Yes, and it's gonna be released this week, or was it? It will be released. Maybe it's been released. It changes. It changes all the time.
I read about the Secret Falls one.
And so what they've done is,
no longer on the board.
He just resigned for personal reasons. He's
working together.
family issues, friends, life, work. Something had to give because he's spending more time with things than he'd like to spend with his family instead. So yeah, yeah, we were.
Mask is, so even if the order gets rescinded, our policy